Take to the skies in this high-flying adventure where an all-powerful robot butler learns to love. We're talking about the movie Slipstream, starring Mark Hamill, today on Nothing Movies.
Hello, however you wish to self-identify, and welcome back to Nothing Movies, where we ask the question, the is this? That's right, the old podcast title is the new catchphrase. It's the podcast where we go through an actor's filmography and choose 3 of the most anonymous and culturally untalked about movies that they've made, and decide whether or not they've got a certain something, or if they're just a whole lot of nothing. I'm Kaz Lasgard.
And I'm Jameson Rafter.
And it's time for a new trilogy! Yes,
Yay.
It's a new miniseries, a new hope,
Oh.
one might say, because we are checking out the Nothing Movies of Mark Hamill, a young actor who came out of nowhere to star in the most financially and culturally successful film trilogy of all time, and then as soon as that ended, basically faded into obscurity. Or did he? Because as we actually know, he quietly became one of the most successful voiceover artists of all time. But today we're here to talk about the movies that didn't quite work for him. We're here to talk about why his film career never took off. And to start things off, we're taking a look at 1989's Slipstream, a movie that asks the question, what happened when the producer of Star Wars sunk every last dollar he had into a movie that's basically the plot of Bronx Executioner? I don't know if
Oh my god, you're right.
I don't know.
You're right. Oh, how did I not make that connection? How did I not make that connection?
It's about an android who falls in love with a human and then has to stay one step ahead of bounty hunters. I realized that about halfway through.
Oh my god, yes, that's exactly what's going on. They're in the post-apocalypse, everyone's wearing rags. Yeah.
But to help us talk about this, we have a very special guest. He's a good old friend from my days at theater school at Studio 58, the theater artist, Jordan Lloyd Watkins.
Hello,
Thanks for joining us today, sir.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I am happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on this esteemed podcast platform.
We are, yeah. It is esteemed. It is technically episode 4 of this
Of the
run.
new format, yeah.
Of the new format.
But it's just a continuation of the legacy.
Yes.
Yes.
The
How
fuck
many
is this
episodes now
legacy?
have you guys done in total?
Oh god, we got to be in the 60s by now.
Yeah, counting the old podcast stuff, yeah, I feel like this is like around like 62, 63 or something like that. Yeah,
Awesome, guys. That's
we just
great.
keep churning them out.
It's very kind of you to say that you're happy to be here, having watched the movie that we're discussing today.
Well, I have to say, I wasn't singing your praises when I was about 10 minutes into the film. I was a pox on your house, Kaz, for making me watch this movie. But I got through it.
Maybe there's a way I can talk my way out of this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm coming down with something, guys. I can't make it tomorrow. And then you just shut it off 20 minutes in. That's what I almost did.
Yeah, I honestly, usually now it's like my appetite for digesting media is so big, it's like I can watch something in 30 minutes or an hour like nothing. This movie's like 90 minutes, and it took me 3 sittings to get through it.
That's usually the case with the movies we watch on this. They have the shortest run times, and it feels like an hour.
I watched
hours to get through them.
And there was one section in the middle where I
know what you're talking about.
and I'm watching it, and I was like, okay, that must have been at least 20 minutes. 5 minutes had passed.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. It was so... Oh, my God.
There's a couple of sequences where I had to... Like, it felt like it was longer because I had to rewind a couple of times to, like, did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Am I following this correctly?
Yeah.
And I was. It just didn't make a lick of sense.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's an incredibly dense screenplay that's going on. It's the sort of science fiction story that doesn't hold your hand and isn't really interested in explaining or doing any sort of exposition. Mm-hmm. So, I was fairly lost. I don't know. Jameson, you usually handle the plot outline for this, and I'm curious to see how you're going to handle this one. What I will say is, have you had the opportunity to read the Wikipedia page for Slipstream?
I had to read the Wikipedia page afterwards.
It actually it makes a lot more sense.
Yes.
The movie makes a ton more sense after you read the Wikipedia page, and it actually, like, describes in quite decent detail
Yeah.
what happened in this movie.
I read the Wikipedia page afterwards to be like, okay, what am I missing about the plot of this movie? And then I read it and goes, no, that's exactly what I thought happened in the movie.
Right.
As the breakdowns happen, like, okay, that's revealed to me, but no, they're talking about something else here. There's some element that I'm missing or not quite catching. And no, it's all kind of right there on the screen, but it's just giving you the middle finger as it's doing it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to reveal my cards a little earlier than I normally do, but based on your guys' assessments that you just shared, I think this movie's okay.
I don't think it's okay. No, I think it's wrong. I think it's bad.
I don't love it. I didn't hate it with the vitriol that it seems like both of you have.
Well, we're going to get into
We're
this.
going to get into it. Yeah. But before we get into this, Jordan, what are your thoughts on the man himself, Mark Hamill? Like, what is your what would you say your relationship to him as an actor,
as a viewer,
as a star,
Oh, what a question!
and
I
a
have
famous
no
person?
idea. Let's see what I can come up with. You know, it's funny because he is the guy, Mark Hamill, right? Just thinking about it, I always saw him as kind of a sad figure, to be honest. But it's also one of those things where it's like, oh, look at this poor successful person. Because you think about Star Wars, but there is that like. You know, I think he had a lot of challenges after Star Wars because it's like, and this film's an example of where like you did Star Wars, you went to Mount Olympus, you were up there with the gods. You can't go any higher than that. So everything you're doing after the fact is going to feel like a disappointment. Mm-hmm. I wonder about with Mark Hamill, like with this film, for example, I wonder, was it a pain in the ass to be around him the whole time they were filming it? Because it is like, well, you know, on Star Wars. Or was it a thing where it's like, don't talk to him on Star Wars.
He's trying to distance himself
Don't
from
talk
Star
about
Wars.
Star Wars. Don't ever mention it, even though we're doing a sci-fi film and it's Mark Hamill. Don't talk about it or you're fired. You know what I mean? And it's him as an artist. One thing I saw recently which made me like him a lot, I was watching a documentary about one of the ones that they re-released for Disney and they added a whole bunch of new shit in it. The one about making of the original. And it's a good documentary because it shows you about how challenging and how up against the wind they were with the whole thing.
Up against the Slipstream, one might say.
They were up against the Slipstream, exactly. But one of the things that made me really like him was the fact that, so yeah, he was the young, handsome guy. And like, I know, I'm probably in the majority of people that are just bored of like beautiful people getting to do everything and being like told they're amazing. Hello, Instagram. And it's just like, oh, another. And he was like a young, beautiful guy, but he was funny. He had a great energy. People said they really liked working with him. But one of the things I really liked to see in making the film, it was so hard, like making the first Star Wars because no one believed in the project or whatever. He was really trying to make people laugh and like was a really sweet person. He was like, you know, what, 24 or whatever when they filmed it.
Mm-hmm. Keeping the energy.
He was keeping like a positive energy for everyone and he seemed like a really sweet guy and that's what everyone said, like working with him. I was like, oh, that's awesome. But then I wonder, like, was that the Mark, you know, he was this artist and like a young, happy artist at this time. Like, well, then how long did that go on for? You know what I mean?
Before
like
he got bitter with like, the studio system,
yeah, with the studio system. And basically, you know, did he remove himself from being in movies? Or was it sort of like he was cast out because, and I don't know, he's the only one who could really say. Because then he goes and has this intense work as a voice actor, which is much more like he's like to be creative, be private, reinvent himself as an artist. So I gotta respect that. And I wonder, like, was that him, like wanting to, like, cocoon artistically? Reinvent himself? Like, what was that? I don't know. But it's kind of curious to me. But then it's like, you know, I remember he was on, like, he did do little bit parts. Like, this is very rambly. But it's like, I remember he did some bit part on a soap opera right before, I think it was Phantom Menace or whatever, or something like that. He did a bit on, like, a terrible soap opera. It was like, why, Mark? Like, do you need the money? Like, why would you do that? I mean, it's not good money. It's daytime TV.
Well, they're doing the prequel, so I'm not in that one. So
and
I didn't get a call from George.
Yeah, so like,
you know.
what that in that case was like, I need people to remember me or whatever. It's like, and you know what? Look up the time that he did this. Maybe he did that was years after Phantom came out. It was around that time, and it was like, why would he do that little bit part?
Why does he need to do?
Why
that?
does he need to do it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing with any of these celebrities, right? Like, how much have they ruined themselves? I mean, look at, you know. There's so many of them have ruined themselves. Like, I mean, there's a long list of people that have ruined themselves.
Yeah. I wouldn't put Mark Hamill in that.
No,
category.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. I don't know. I don't know enough of... I don't know.
You know, we're here to learn.
Yeah, I mean,
we're here to learn.
One thing I do know about Mark Hamill, and Cass and I, like, we will get into this on probably one of our upcoming Mark Hamill episodes. But Mark Hamill is the type of artist who really carries his passion on his sleeve. Even though he's like very heavily in like the comic book and like the sci-fi realm, he was a fan first. So he really strives for like the perfection and like the sincerity in that. And he has like very strong opinions on like the direction that like the franchises that he's in go on. So he's really approaching these properties as a fan first, who wants to do a good job. And I feel like after Return of the Jedi, where like maybe he was getting typecast, or the roles weren't coming in because he was pigeonholed as Luke Skywalker, that's when he starts getting a little bit disillusioned with the movie making process. But in every interview I've ever seen of him, like he still loves working on projects. Like, I mean, what actor doesn't like working? But he seems to have like a real joy for filmmaking as a process. Yeah. He has a great respect for actors who came before and after him. So yeah, he just seems like a really likable guy who maybe lets his passions get away from him, and that may give him this impression of he's difficult to work with, or like he's very picky with the project he takes on.
That's the double-edged sword you see with a lot of artists, where like I actually do respect, like Ricky Gervais said, and this is something he'd be reviled for now, is he said, sometimes you do have to be a fascist,
Sure.
And Ricky Gervais said that about the way he works on a project, and it's like, well, I get it though. Like if you have a vision about something and you want to be in control of it, and he is someone who really controls his projects, writes, directs, acts in it. He knows he has one way he wants to do something.
And Ricky Gervais also said his most recent comedy series, he wants to be cancelled by the end of it. He's aiming to be cancelled. So
one of the things I like about Mark Hamill, what you're saying, Jameson, is that he's got that great not giving a fuck attitude that it doesn't seem to cross over into being an asshole.
Yeah.
Like when the new films, like he just literally was like, he disagreed with certain things about it, and it's like, well, this is what I think.
Yeah, but whatever, I'm not the writer.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's like, yeah, that's what I think, and like, he's coming in as a fan, and he was, because sometimes then it's when they're egomaniacs, then that comes across as being an asshole.
Well, I have a bit of context to answer some of the questions that you've brought up. I haven't gone into this yet because, as we said, we have 2 more episodes where we're going to discuss Mark Hamill. We're just going to talk about his movie filmography today. Next episode, we're going to go into the voiceover work and the TV work, which dwarfs the film work. Like he's been in quite a bit, but it's fairly sporadic. It's kind of all over the place. 2 thoughts I had on what you were saying earlier. Number 1, they definitely talked about Star Wars on the set of this movie because this movie was produced by the Star Wars guy.
Yes.
And
not George Lucas.
Getting producer Gary Kurtz, who we will talk about a little bit because it's kind of like the main thing to talk about this movie. He didn't direct it, but this really is his baby, and the failure of it is kind of the heartbreak of this movie, but
he's sweeping under a bridge now.
Yes, certainly getting Mark Hamill involved in this project was a big get for him. So yes, they definitely talked about Star Wars on the set, or maybe they didn't because Gary Kurtz had a big falling out with George Lucas. So maybe it was tight lips on the set of this.
The project they don't talk about.
Yes. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to, you mentioned, Mark Hamill, he had like these 3, the highest grossing movies of those year. He was at the top of Mount Olympus, and you said, like, where's there to go from there? I mean, that's an excellent point, and you can definitely point the camera at both Hamill and Carrie Fisher, but, Harrison Ford is the other outlier of that thing. Now, he also had Indiana Jones in between the Star Wars movies. So he had, like, the full force of Spielberg working behind him as well, and was just all like, no, this is our movie star. This is the guy we're kind of putting. So if anything, there's maybe an argument to be made that Harrison Ford kind of siphoned some of Mark Hamill's fame away from him. To a thought. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything... I don't know if that argument holds any water, but it's interesting to think.
It's hard to argue against because, I mean, Harrison Ford, he's a fucking legend. Who doesn't love Han Solo in those movies? Who doesn't love Indiana Jones?
Yeah, and Han Solo is the character that everyone wants to be. Luke Skywalker is hero with 1,000 faces or whatever.
Well, he's the chosen one character. He's also like a little whiny in the first, like, we gotta go to the Tashi station to get some power converters.
You just said the way that I was going to end today's episode, so thanks for that. Yeah, but who's to say? But anyway, let's add a little bit of context to this. So Mark Richard Hamill, born September 25th, 1951 in Oakland, California. His father was a U.S. Navy captain. His mom was a homemaker. He has 2 brothers and 4 sisters. He grew up
Big family.
Yep, big family. He grew up in Virginia, California, and Japan.
Oh.
And majored in drama at Los Angeles City College. He got his start on soap operas and TV sitcoms like General Hospital and The Partridge Family, and he played a lead in the pilot episode of 8 is Enough, but was replaced for the series. This is an interesting little bit of Star Wars trivia that I didn't know. I don't know if either of you have ever heard this through the ether. Hamill's
Through
friend...
the Force.
Yeah, through the Force. Yes, exactly.
A Force Ghost told me this.
Yeah, the midichlorians let me know. Hamill's friend was auditioning for Apocalypse Now and went across the hall to where Star Wars auditions were happening. Imagine that. That's a little piece of history right there.
Jeez.
And after,
busy day.
after watching the Star Wars auditions for a while, which I guess was a thing you could just do.
Mm-hmm.
If you were auditioning for one thing, you could just go and watch the auditions for a completely different other movie.
That's bizarre.
That guy sucks. Don't pick him.
After watching for a while, he realized his good buddy Mark Hamill was perfect for the role of Luke Skywalker. That friend, Robert Englund, who went on to be Freddy Krueger.
Oh.
Yeah,
Whoa.
so just imagine, like, you know, the Biz back in the day of those two cinema icons just being, you know...
Icons helping icons. You love to see it.
Icons, get it out, yeah. And now I'm just picturing, what if Robert Englund was in Apocalypse Now? That would be a bit of a
Time to fry.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning, bitch. Yeah, and so let's go through the Mark Hamill movie filmography. I'm not going to go over all of them in tremendous detail because there's a lot of throwaway, straight to VHS type stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing of
Including
tremendous...
this film.
Including this, yes, exactly, yeah. This is kind of like a weird sweet spot. Like, it premiered in theaters in, like, Australia and the UK, I think, but no, this did not make it to American theaters here. But his first movie in theaters is Star Wars. Before that, he did TV shows. He did a bunch of TV movies. I'm not going to talk about all the TV movies. I will mention the first TV movie he was in was called Sarah T. Portrait of a Teenage Alcoholic, which was an early movie for Richard Donner before he went on to make The Omen and Superman and Lethal Weapon. It stars Linda Blair from The Exorcist as the eponymous Sarah T. And then he makes Star Wars, of course. After Star Wars, in between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, he makes Corvette Summer, which is kind of his only stab at, like, you know, the good-looking, like, all-American boy comedy. That's a movie where Mark Hamill plays a high school grad who teams up with a teenage prostitute played by Annie Potts. Corvette Summer is also the last movie where you get to see Mark Hamill's unperturbed face because, of course, in between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, he gets into a car accident and he has a noticeable scar, which is why that movie opens with the Wampa attack, because they needed to explain why Luke now has a scar across his face. Also, in between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, he does a little TV movie called the Star Wars Holiday Special. Either of you heard of this? No, that's probably just like a footnote. I don't know if there's much to say about
Probably not
that.
even worth bringing up.
No, probably not. No.
George would appreciate that, actually.
And he would like it. He would like it very much. 1980, he does 2 movies. He does The Empire Strikes Back, the most successul movie of that year, and the best Star Wars movie. We're all in agreement.
Kind of goes without saying,
Yeah,
to be
that's
honest.
not a hot take. No. It's not like my Slipstream hot take of it being fine.
Yeah.
Also in 1980, he does World War II drama The Big Red One, which is from cult filmmaker Samuel Fuller, who loved making big, violent, gory, exploitive movies.
This is a terrible name for a film. The Big Red
The
One?
Big Red... I'm sure there's a reason within the movie that explains why it's called that, but yeah, that might be a reason why we don't speak about that in the same terms as Saving Private Ryan in The Longest Day, because, The Big Red One is kind of...
Like that could be the name of, like, the Clifford movie or something. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm just picturing that old Looney Tunes monster Gossamer, like that big red thing with the sneakers. Yes. So just him stomping around in the trenches.
The Big Red One. Lee Marvin, Mark Hamill, Gossamer. 1981, he does a movie called The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia.
Boy, he sure knows how to pick a movie based on the titles.
That is a movie where Dennis Quaid plays a troublemaking country singer, and Hamill is the state trooper that falls in love with his sister, who's played by Christy McNichol from the Pirate movie.
Oh, wow.
So we're running through all of our all the old hits.
Cavalcade of Stars. Wow, what a trip down memory lane this is.
1982, he has a small role in a British comedy called Britannia Hospital, which is a wacky British satire that Hamill cameoed in for free as a favor to his buddy Malcolm McDowell.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
Well, he knows a lot of icons.
He just hangs out with a lot of people. He's friends with a lot of people who would go on to be famous. So, yeah. Something we'll find over the course of this is that Mark Hamill did, weirdly, a lot of foreign cinema. I guess because he's trying to do the Rick Dalton thing, where he's not a star in one area and he's on a bunch of TV, but
he was a
calls.
star in one area. I think he just got disillusioned with the Hollywood system.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be. I'll have to dig
We'll
up
ask Mark
some.
next time you talk to
Well,
him.
ask Mark.
We'll get him on the horn.
Yeah. I think he actually is in Vancouver filming right now because he's in House of Usher.
Oh.
Yeah. So he might be around. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'll make some
Let's bring
calls.
out our next guest. It's Mark Hamill.
We're doing deep dives on all your craziest, shittiest movies. You want to
talk about Slipstream?
Remember that one?
Sure, we'll have some. Man, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
On the second episode.
I bet he's got a lot to say about Slipstream.
He would probably make you turn off your dryer. You'd be like, I can't work in these conditions.
It might remind him of like first day on set of the original Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
That was how they made the Star Destroyers back then. They were made out of a repurposed washer and dryer that George Lucas just had lying around.
Just walking on set was like an old appliance store.
1983, he does Return of the Jedi, and then he is...
Here's a hot take. That movie's not as bad as a lot of Star Wars fans think. I like that movie.
I like it. I like it too.
I feel like I was shocked when I was in like my late teens, early 20s when I found out that people don't like Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And so I always kind of like assumed like the first three Star Warses were kind of untouchable.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it gets a lot of hate because of, there's a shit ton of puppets and, look, dumb Ewoks. Now flash forward nowadays and people are crying for practical effects. And people like are losing their shit over Baby Yoda. So, do you hate puppets in Star Wars or not? Make up your fucking minds, people.
Clearly not.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, that first, 45 minutes of Return of the Jedi at Jabba's Palace is
That's my favorite.
It's one of the best parts of any Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
That's my favorite sequence of Star Wars is that first part of Jedi. Maybe the whole movie doesn't has its dips, but that's my favorite part is the Jabba's Palace.
They do make Han Solo a bit of a clown in that movie, but other than that, I think it's fine. Darth Vader looks awesome in that movie. The music is intense.
Harrison Ford famously didn't want to do Return of the Jedi, so it's him kind of checking his watch to
he wanted to get killed in that one.
He wanted to die, exactly. I think maybe that has something to do with the fact that it's just the first part of Return of the Jedi is just so good. The second half just isn't up to that level. But it's fine. There's some good stuff. The speeder bike chase through the forest is really fun.
It's really good.
It's great.
Alright, so we're on record. Return of the Jedi, good movie. And then he does not make another movie for 7 years. You know what it is? Slipstream!
And brought him back.
Exactly.
Brought him back.
Slipstream is his immediate follow-up to Return of the Jedi.
Which brings, oh my god, it makes the sting of the movie so much worse.
I came back for this.
He didn't exactly go into hibernation during this time. He still did TV, but he was mostly prolific on the stage. This was Mark Hamill's big Broadway section of his career.
Okay.
He played a bunch of roles on stage. The two big ones that he played during this time is he played John Merrick in The Elephant Man, and he played Mozart in Amadeus. He actually auditioned for the film version of Amadeus, which came out a year after he started playing the role on stage. He didn't get it because the producer, quote, didn't want Luke Skywalker in his movie. I think maybe we're starting to see a little bit of a reason why he kind of stepped away from the industry for a while here. So 89 you does Slipstream. Then there's two movies that I think I'm just going to skip over because, Jameson, we're still trying to decide which one we're going to do our third episode on, so I'll just move on from there. In 1991, he does The Guyver. Have either of you seen this?
Like a book adaptation?
Yeah, it's an adaptation of the Japanese manga that is this weird, goopy, practical effect sci-fi movie that I remember catching bits of on Sci-Fi growing up. You look at the DVD box cover of that, Mark Hamill's face is front and center. It tricks people into thinking that he himself is the Guyver. He's not. He's playing a supporting character who later violently and horrifyingly gets turned into a giant cockroach.
Oh.
That scene is maybe worth YouTubing on its own if you've ever wanted to see Mark Hamill with a mustache turning into basically a Cronenberg creature.
Well, I do now.
It's fucked. I remember seeing that as a kid, and I remember thinking, why is Luke Skywalker morphing into my nightmares? That movie's wild. It didn't do Mark any favors in terms of his career, but it's an interesting footnote, to say the least. Same year he does Black Magic Woman, which is an erotic thriller featuring the Santana song.
Nice.
So now he's doing erotic thrillers going straight to VHS. So that's about where we are in the Mark Hamill filmography at this point. 1992, he does Sleepwalkers, which is a Stephen King movie about incestuous cat people. He has an uncredited role as the sheriff in that.
Okay.
Then he does just a whole bunch of movies that went straight to DVD. That skipped the theaters entirely, with titles like Time Runners, Silk Degrees, The Raffle, Laserhawk, Watchers Reborn, Strike Back. Oh no, wait, no, sorry, that's not it. I'll strike that from the record.
Strike that one back. Yeah.
Reeseville, Airborne, Virtually Heroes. Okay, now I'm getting back into the actual shit.
This sounds like the kind of shit you would see like GoFundMe's for at like fan expos.
Yeah, these are all these predate GoFundMe, but these absolutely were crowd-funded movies if they were to be made today. In 1995, he's finally back in a movie that kind of has a bit of heat behind it. He has a very small role in John Carpenter's The Village of the Damned, where he plays a reverend. I think he's killed by the children. That movie has a very weird cast. The stars of that movie are Christopher Reeve and Kirstie Alley.
Oh.
In a John Carpenter movie. It's not a very well-remembered John Carpenter movie. It's definitely one of his lesser works. In 1998, he's in a movie that we really wanted to do on the podcast, but we cannot find it anywhere. He's the villain in a Swedish action movie called Hamilton, which is a rare leading role for Peter Stormare. We would have loved to have done that. We cannot find it. It is not streaming anywhere. And true story, if you search for Hamilton movie online, you basically only find one thing. So that movie is impossible to find. I don't know how we would ever do that.
Well, have you reached out to any like movie buffs in Sweden?
I mean, I can get on the chat boards.
What is the equivalent of Sweden's Black Dog Video?
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone tweet at the Swedish equivalent of Black Dog Video and tell them we need a copy of Hamilton.
It's just 18 copies of Hamilton. Yeah, exactly.
And then he sends you a copy of the Broadway show Hamilton dubbed in Swedish.
Yeah.
I found it for you.
Well, when we do
Swedish adaptation of
when we do the trilogy on Peter Stormare, we'll try and do Hamilton one of these days. 2001, he stars as the Clockknocker in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which was certainly for me the first time I had seen Mark Hamill on screen in what felt like a decade at that time. But that's just a winking cameo in the same movie that also got Carrie Fisher to show up to. What did they do?
I forgot she was in that movie.
What indignity did they do? Oh, I think Jay tries to go down on her, and she's a nun or something, and she's all like, what? Or something.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. What else is after this? Okay, 2012, he does a movie. I saw this movie. I don't really have much of a memory of it, but he does this dark comedy called Sushi Girl, which is a movie about a bunch of criminals. It's kind of like a Reservoir Dogs pastiche, because it's a bunch of criminals in one location, and there's lots of flashbacks. But it's him, Tony Todd, Michael Biehn, Jeff Fahey, Danny Trejo. Just like I rented it based on like that cast alone. I don't have any remembrance of it, other than the title comes from the fact that there is a sushi girl on their table who is just this poor actress who has to sit motionless with sushi all over her for the entirety of the movie. And spoilers, maybe there's more to her than meets the eye.
Transformers? What?
Yeah, yes, James said it's a stealth Transformers prequel.
Yeah, okay,
yes, exactly.
Cool.
2014, a movie that I bet a lot of people forget that he's in. He has a very small role in Kingsman: The Secret Service.
Oh yeah.
He's like a professor that I think blows up at some point or something. Well, like it's like a 5-minute thing.
Yeah, but in the comic that movie is based on, he's a central character. He's actually like Mark Hamill is like a presence as himself in that comic. He's one of the celebrities that gets kidnapped in for the bad guy's New World Order kind of thing because the bad guy's such a huge fanboy.
Right.
So that's why he has a cameo role in that movie.
Isn't that interesting? I never read the comic. Isn't it interesting that, like, a big role in the comic, you get like a big actor to be in the movie version, and then you give him essentially nothing to do and kill him very early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You write him into the movie. Looking at this material here, the source material, I'm a prominent figure in this. I'm going to get a ton of screen time in this. Oh no, I'm not playing myself. I'm going to be in one scene as like a no-name professor.
And what a missed opportunity to not put Mark Hamill and Samuel L. Jackson in the same room together, because it's two generations of Star Wars. I don't even remember if he had...
I knew your dad, that kind of shit.
Yeah, I knew your dad. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he cut my hand off and shoved me out of here. 2015, he is, of course, in Star Wars The Force Awakens. He is second billed for 5 seconds of screen time and 0 dialogue. So that must have been nice billing for him. And then 2017, he has The Last Jedi. I don't know if this is a hot take or not. His best performance?
Yeah.
What do you mean, compared to what?
Of his career? Again, I haven't seen everything that
As
he's
Luke
done.
Skywalker?
I really like him in that movie.
Okay.
I like him a lot. Is that a hot take for you?
I wouldn't agree. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're also entitled to be wrong.
That's not...
Fight!
You're not wrong. It's a nerd fight!
Well, that movie is just so bad that, like...
Oh, you're on that side of the camp. Oh,
100%.
interesting.
Oh,
okay,
100%.
cool.
I don't think that movie's... I think that movie's a train wreck.
Oh.
It's like...
See, it's my favorite of the sequels.
I mean, it's no Slipstream.
It's no Slipstream. No, Slipstream at least had some misguided originality to it.
Look, okay.
Okay, but you know what? We're not going to get into
We
that.
can't get into the
we have to
Last
start a
Jedi.
whole
We
new
can't
pod-
get into the Last
if we're
Jedi
gonna,
here.
If we're going to start bitching about like the actual Star Wars movies, we need to start a new podcast.
Yeah.
We'll just say that is a divisive film.
If you want to talk
there's
about
really no middle ground in
Yeah.
Last Jedi. People seem to love it or they hate it.
If you want to hear like a bunch of arguments about how the Star Wars sequel trilogy has been going, there are countless other mediums on the internet to hit
lots
your
of other
wagon to.
podcasts you can listen to. Not even podcasts, just like chat rooms and Reddit boards.
Mm.
We're not going to do
people
that
spray
today.
painting their thoughts on the side of buses. I mean, you can go anywhere to find it.
Yeah.
2017, he also does a very interesting little movie that I highly recommend if either of you haven't seen. He's in a movie called Brigsby Bear, which is the brainchild of SNL's Kyle Mooney, which is a really interesting little indie. It's about a kid. He's kidnapped by two people who convince him that they're his parents, and they live in a bunker. And the dad, who's played by Mark Hamill, plays like this guy who kidnapped a child. He created this television show that he like produced and started himself called Brigsby Bear, and he does like dozens and dozens of episodes, and this kid basically grows up with this TV show being his Bible. And then eventually, when he's an adult, he gets rescued and he reunited with his actual family, and he realizes everything that he knows is a lie, but he still loves Brigsby Bear. Fascinating, quirky little movie, really fun. Mark Hamill, he's not in it much, but it's a good, solid little supporting part for him. I'd say definitely check that out. 2018, he's in this movie called Con Man, which is a true story about a guy who ran this Ponzi scheme, and that has an interesting supporting cast. Ving Rhames, James Caan, Talia Shire, Armand Asante. So he's in movies with like an interesting collection of other people who maybe need a hit. Ving Rhames, we should put his name in the jar. That would be a great.
Definitely.
That would be a great actor to do a trilogy of stuff.
Oh, for sure.
See what kind of action schlock he's doing when he's not in a Mission Impossible movie.
It's basically Ving Rhames is just like waiting by the phone for Tom Cruise to call, and then it's just all like, well, how am I going to fill it this time? All right, I'll be in like 3 direct-to-DVD movies about zombies this month alone. It's like, goddamn, Ving Rhames is like, I'm on a weird Ving Rhames tangent. I just think he's like...
Lay off Ving Rhames.
He's one of the best actors currently working right now that doesn't get like any respect for like mainstream Hollywood. I don't know, that's my Ving Rhames hot take. And then the tail end of Mark Hamill, 2019, 2 movies. This is kind of a cheat, but I'm gonna include it in there. He is, of course, the voice of Chucky in Child's Play, a reboot that I think a lot of people have already forgotten about, but I think is fine. And I think he's okay in it. I think he's, like, kind of creepy. And then, of course, Rise of Skywalker, which is maybe how I feel about how you feel about The Last Jedi.
I feel the same way.
Yes.
So.
we can at least agree that that movie is very bad and shouldn't have been made the way it was. Yes?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, there we go.
We don't have to agree, but we do agree on this point.
We don't have to agree at all. We've invited you here
to disagree.
Not to agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you imagine how boring a podcast that would be? And unfortunately, there are podcasts out there where it's just people going, "Yeah, I agree with that," the whole time about something.
Great banter.
Like it just makes for such a titillating conversation.
Welcome back to Back Hat,
Yeah.
where we just
Welcome back to Group Hug, where we all agree all the time about everything.
these liberals with their safe space podcasts.
Welcome back to Echo Chamber Safe Space. I'm your host, Group Hug.
His name is Group Hug.
Not even spelled that way.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's probably time for a little pee break here, and so we couldn't
To
think
slip
of.
some stream.
Hey, we got there. We got there organically.
Okay, what did you think of that?
Oh, like 35 minutes ago. Can we wrap this up, please, so we can talk about this fucking movie?
All right, well, listen to this charity spot, and we'll be right back, and we'll talk about the movie proper.
On February 24th, 2022, Russia began an invasion of Ukraine, in an escalation of the Russo-Ukrainian War that began in 2014. It is the largest conventional military attack in Europe since World War II, and has left untold millions dead, wounded, and displaced. We here on the show stand in strong solidarity with the people of Ukraine, and to those calling for a full withdrawal of the Russian forces from that country. Our thoughts are also with the citizens of Russia, who, while suffering the brunt of the sanctions against their country, also risk their lives to stand up to their government against the invasion. We wish for nothing but peace between nations and the safety and well-being of people the world over. It's easy for us to feel helpless in global conflicts given the enormity and weight of war, and how the machinations involved can be so far above the capabilities, priorities, and influence of the people. Fortunately, there are humanitarian organizations out there that offer means to limit suffering and offer aid to the people most affected by war. A way to put some good back into the world during such awful times. On this matter, organizations to assist the people of Ukraine include United Help Ukraine, which receives and distributes donations, food, and medical supplies to displaced Ukrainians affected by Russia's invasion, and also to Revive Soldiers Ukraine, which provides medical aid to Ukrainian soldiers and provides support to their families. If you would like to learn more about these organizations or to donate to these programs, please visit bit.ly/UHUkraine and to rsukraine.org. Those links again are bit.ly/UHUkraine and to rsukraine.org.
And we're back, and gentlemen, I have some bad news. During the break, I was hit by a poison dart, and we're going to have to wrap this podcast up a little quicker than usual because I have days to live.
Yes.
I have, at the very least, 7 or 8 days before I'm to start show any sort of poisoning.
Any kind of some mild vision blurring in the first 5 minutes, and then you're fine for the rest of your life.
That was the most annoying part of the movie.
God
for me.
damn!
Is this ticking clock they introduce where Bill Paxton is poisoned, and then nothing ever happens.
Yeah. Mark Hamill is slowly following him. Is the only repercussion from that.
Yeah. Are you poisoned, or is there a tracker in there? It's both.
And I didn't even realize there was a tracker in it until I read the Wikipedia synopsis. I missed that line of dialogue entirely.
Hell of a tracker, weak ass poison.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So Slipstream is from 1989. It's directed by Steven Lisberger, whose big claim to fame is he directed Tron.
Yeah.
Yeah, a movie
that I didn't like.
No. Tron has a really weird legacy. I didn't even mean to do that.
Yes, you did. Fuck off. You say with the biggest shit-eating grin.
I honestly did it. The thought formed in my head. I'm all like, oh, I just referenced the sequel. Yeah, Tron has a weird legacy in the sense that it's the only word. It's what that word means, Jameson. In the sense that, I guess there are people that like that movie because it has a following, or Disney would like you to think that it
does have a
following.
It does.
It has to do something with the time it came out. Definitely,
that's the only thing it has to do with. It has to do with the fact that at the time it was like, wow, look at this, look at the effects, look at the thing,
and then you sit down and watch it, and you're like, oh, all right.
It's the aesthetic and nothing more.
Yeah,
let's
100%.
be honest.
Because I, like many people, I think didn't get around to watching Tron until Tron Legacy came out, and I got really hyped for it. I'm all like, oh, cool. And then I watched Tron, I'm all like, oh, that wasn't very good. And then I watched Tron Legacy, and I went, oh, that also wasn't very good. Why do people like Tron? Yeah, it's an odd...
Groundbreaking for the time.
It's an odd franchise.
Yeah. Well, a big part of it probably has to do with the arcades were such a thing, right?
Mm.
Yeah, that
that's
video
the
game
arcade culture was way
deal.
bigger then.
Sure.
For all the obvious reasons. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, they didn't have Wreck-It Ralph back in 1982, so, you know, like, they didn't have that frame of reference. Tron was all they had.
The computer was so mysterious then.
So Slipstream.
I just want to mention Steven Lisberger. He directed 2 other movies. The movie he made before Tron was Animal Olympics.
No.
Which is exactly what it says. It's an animated movie about animals who do Olympics. It features the voices of Billy Crystal, Gilda Radner, and Harry Shearer. If whatever you're picturing, that's it. That's what that movie is. And then, of course, in between Tron and Slipstream is 2 sci-fi movies. He naturally does a John Cusack 80s comedy called Hot Pursuit, where John Cusack misses the plane to the Caribbean that he's going on a vacation with his girlfriend and her parents, and so he spends 10 days trying to track her down in a trailer that looks kind of fun and probably just a touch of culturally unsensitive to the Caribbean people nowadays, because it was the 80s. And then he never makes another movie after Slipstream. Color us surprised.
So what happens to a person like that? Does he just... that's a genuine question. Is like, what happens to him at that point? Does he just retire?
He's got no other credits on IMDb other than a story by credit on Tron Legacy, but he didn't write that movie. He just came up with the characters from the first movie, so he gets like a legacy credit. Again, didn't mean to do that.
My theory is he just took one of those airplanes they made for this movie and flew off into the sunset, never to be seen again.
Yeah, he took a ride on the Slipstream. Yeah. I mean, like, a big commercial flop can completely destroy the career of a director. It's a little easier for actors to crawl out of that pit, but a director will, like, almost never get hired again.
Yeah.
You know, like, one of the most prolific directors of the 80s was Martin Brest, who did Beverly Hills Cop, the highest grossing movie of that year. He does Scent of the Woman, he does Midnight Run, a fantastic movie, but he made Gigli. And he's just done. He hasn't done anything since. He's got absolutely nothing in the tank because he made one all-time turkey, and now he's just done. Even though he made Beverly Hills Cop, you'd think that guy could get another kick at the can.
If they ever rebooted it, maybe they'd get him back.
I mean, they've been trying to. They've been trying to go back to that well for a while, and it's just... how fucking depressing would that be? But Slipstream!
Yes!
Jameson, let's dive into this!
I feel like we've been doing everything in our power to not talk about Slipstream.
Yeah.
That's what we often do here.
Frankly, I don't blame you guys. Yeah, this movie is a colossal piece of shit, and I don't know about you guys, but it was a fucking eyesore for me to watch.
Yeah.
You know, on the fucking, like, 4K TV I got, and whoever fucking uploaded this video decided to upload it in, like, 241p compression.
Now,
did you watch it on Tubi?
No, I watched it on YouTube.
Oh, well, that's probably... That's the transfer on YouTube is never great.
Oh, I didn't know this was also on Tubi.
It was on Tubi. Kaz
fuck.
told me to check it out on Tubi.
All right,
Quick
well,
plug for Tubi.
That's a damn shame because I have to imagine, like, the best parts of this movie were, like, the flyby sequences of seeing these actual airplanes fly around, like, the fucking Scottish Highlands or wherever they are.
It didn't look fantastic.
No, it looked like garbage. It was hot sledge. And
so I'm not missing anything.
No, you didn't miss anything, and that was one of the... I was going to say the same thing. One of the hardest things about watching was the quality of the film. And the thing is, on Tubi, I don't know what YouTube was, but on Tubi, someone uploaded the 4:3 version. And I was like, what the fuck? And I actually looked it up and was like, okay, no, the film was released in widescreen, but of course wasn't released theatrically in North America. It only was released on VHS.
Yeah.
So someone took the VHS version and put it up on Tubi.
Right. And then when the guy downloaded it from fucking Kazaa or whatever, you know, that's like just drag the fucking quality down and then put it up on YouTube.
The last little bit of context that I'll give, just about Gary Kurtz, who, of course, was George Lucas's producer for a very long time. He produced American Graffiti and Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and he was a key creative figure on those early movies, but they had a huge falling out before Return of the Jedi, and then they didn't work together again. The 2 movies he produced after Empire Strikes Back were Dark Crystal in 1982 and Return to Oz in 1985. 2 movies that have become massive cult hits in the time being, but at the time were massive critical failures.
Yeah.
Like, just like huge box office bombs that did not make their money back. And he put so much of his own money and so much of his own hope into Slipstream. He was also going through a divorce at the time, so the production of this movie and that basically bankrupted
and
Gary
destroyed
Kurtz.
his soul.
Yes.
And his career.
And part of the reason why, during like the bankruptcy and everything like that, is like this movie slipped into the public domain. So that's why this transfer is so bad, because it's probably like Xerox like 5 times over.
Okay.
Yes, we could do a stage production of Slipstream if we wanted to.
Not pay a fucking red cent.
Slipstream the musical.
That's amazing.
Get that shit out there.
That for me is the saddest part of this movie.
Yes.
Is the thing about Gary Kurtz, because you look into like the mythology of Star Wars. I'm sorry, Mark, but we keep having to go back to Star Wars here.
I think it's going to come up.
Yeah,
over this miniseries, I think it might come up once or twice.
It comes back to this thing of, so many people say, well, Gary Kurtz, he was this real visionary. He was a master of balancing the business of filmmaking with the creative vision of being an artist and a filmmaker, and blah, blah. He produced things like The Dark Crystal, blah, 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 and Star Wars, the good ones. And it's like, oh yeah, I know him and George had a falling out because he could see the direction that artistically and commercially Star Wars was going. And it's like, oh yeah, well, I mean, maybe he did have this profound insight, and then you see this movie and you go, that's what he ended up doing?
Yeah. This is a case where there's been plenty said about George Lucas needing someone to kind of reel him in for some of his like more outlandish ideas, so it's like more palpable and digestible to the audiences. And yet, like, this is also a cautionary tale of like, not everybody with like grandiose sci-fi fantasy vision should make a movie, because a lot of it is going to go over people's heads, and it's going to be really alienating to people.
So it made me so sad.
I like to imagine Gary Kurtz went into like George Lucas's office one day when they were in pre-production of Return of the Jedi, and he opens the door, and Warwick Davis is just there in a costume, and George is just all like, Gary, I want you to meet Wicket. And Gary's just all like, this is the beginning of the
I'm out. I'm done.
This is the beginning of the end, George.
Yeah. So
Can I just say one thing? The opening title credit of this movie shows that it is a movie made by Entertainment Films Production. Clever name for your studio. I don't know. That's just like, did anyone think of anything better to call the fucking
Entertainment
production?
Films?
You might as well just call it like movie films. I just wanted to point that out. Entertainment Films.
So the movie opens with an airplane chasing down a well-dressed man through the countryside. This is Mark Hamill as, I suppose, a lawman? Or a corrupt lawman?
Yes, he's playing Tasker.
William Tasker.
That I believe they are, him and his partner Belitsky, I believe, used to be the law. And the faction is kind of like split up a little bit, but there are still these groups of law people who are going around kind of trying to keep order in a world where it doesn't really matter.
And it seems like they're the only two people doing this. So this is like a post-apocalyptic movie where a bunch of natural disasters all happen at once. It sounds like a lot of the continents had like a collision course with each other following an earthquake. That's why everything is all like barren and craggly and everything. Floods destroyed all the cities, and years later, now there are these roving bands of people on these frontiers of society who get around by airplane. So they still have, the fuel and I guess the navigational support to fly around the world. And these law people are chasing down this enigmatic English butler type because he killed someone. And we're kind of revealing more about this character, but there's always like, you're always kind of kept in the dark about what this guy is. Is he an alien? Is he like an evolved form of humanity? Is he like an angelic figure? And like, nope, he's a robot as it turns out, but like that'll come up, but
he's a robot.
He's an android.
He's later known as Byron out of a miscommunication, because he does a quote from Byron. Bill Paxton doesn't know who Byron is, so he is just like given the name Byron. Very confusingly, because the more we learn about this character, we learn he had like an entire life before this moment. So
he didn't have any name?
Yeah, one would presume he had a name, but no, we just know him as Byron. He's played by British actor Bob Peck, who most people know from his role as Muldoon in Jurassic Park. Utterance of the classic line, "Clever girl."
He's that guy. Okay.
He's the clever girl guy. Yes.
All right.
I also want to mention that Belitsky is played by Kitty Aldridge. Now, in a piece of trivia that only you will find interesting, Jameson, Kitty Aldridge has been married for 25 years to Dire Straits frontman Mark Knopfler.
Oh my God! She's a mercenary woman.
A mercenary woman. I would like to think, Jameson, because these movies came out around the same time. Mark Knopfler is writing Mercenary Man. Slipstream is playing on TV. He goes, "Wait, mercenary lawman? There we go.
Little inside joke between the podcast history here.
Look up the song "Mercenary Man" from the movie Laser Mission if you want any reference. But I noticed that I had to bring that up, James.
Yeah. So Mark Hamill apprehends Byron, and they go to this like cantina airport or whatever, where they come across Bill Paxton, who is this arms dealer. I guess Matt Owens. He gets wind that Byron is some sort of prized bounty, so he steals him from Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill draws his guns on him, but Mark Hamill is hit by a plane, and that's enough of a distraction.
That was some funny shit. He knocks that wing off.
Yeah, these planes are made of paper.
Yeah. Well, and it makes you think he's some kind of superpowered human or something like that. But no, he's just a dude.
Yeah, because
he's who's hard as fuck who can walk through a plane.
In the early stages of this story, I don't know who anyone is. I don't know how sci-fi we're getting. I don't know who has superpowers. Clearly, someone has superpowers because Byron, as you say, he gets a harpoon through the arm
and dragged off a cliff,
and it doesn't bother him.
Yeah, it doesn't kill him.
Yeah, and he just kind of looks at it huh. That's weird. And then he gets and then I just kind of assumed, okay, well that guy's dead. Yeah. But no, he's just he's seemingly indestructible.
Yes.
He seemingly cannot die.
So Bill Paxton escapes with Byron, but not before Mark Hamill shoots him with the aforementioned poison dart that doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
And
this fucking poison dart ticking clock pissed me off so fucking much. Because there's nothing near the end, he seemingly gets shot by the antidote.
Yes.
And then
but again, it's not a thing of because he wants the antidote. Again, she shoots him and it's her sneaky move. He's like, "Oh my god, you shot me." And she's like, "It was the antidote."
It's to the poison that we've already forgotten about.
Yeah.
Because you refuse to bring it up. There are little pockets where they keep referencing the poison. There's a scene where Byron and Matt are around a campfire, and Matt wakes up and Byron has his hands around his neck, and Byron's just I was checking to see for the poison to see if it got into your system. And Matt's all what do you find? It's all inconclusive. It's all so we don't know. We never know whether or not this poison is actually in his body.
Yeah.
He starts coughing at one point, but also there's a sandstorm, so it's
it can easily be the sandstorm.
Anything.
Yeah.
Could be anything.
Multiple times he said, "I feel fine." That's doing nothing to me. I got a bit of a headache, but that quickly passes.
Yeah, don't worry, some stakes were building for a second, but don't worry, I'm fine.
I want to talk about this diner that they were at.
You
for
mean
a while.
the little the ripoff of the cantina
with its own little cantina
with
band
music?
music?
Its little colorful bunch of characters and everything.
It's actually the first of many cantinas they visit to. Everywhere they land, there's always a little bar scene.
Well, this is a road trip movie,
right? Yeah. Except
Except there's no roads. It's a Slipstream movie.
Right.
They are. I was this cantina seems to exclusively just sell fried food. And I was thinking, the server brings some food back to the kitchen. I'm all that doesn't look too bad. And then there's a line I really liked where brings it back to the chef. And because this is the post-apocalypse, she said, "This isn't squirrel. This isn't rabbit. This is squirrel."
Yeah.
And then he just chops part of it off. He goes "There, now it's rabbit." And I'm all it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Also, I'd eat some squirrel if it was the apocalypse. It's a lot better than the moldy food that they were eating in some of the other post-apocalyptic things. If I can get fried squirrel and some French fries, sign me up for the apocalypse. Doesn't sound too bad.
Apparently, if you're surviving in the woods, squirrel is something good to eat because it's just all protein. Yeah, better than all rabbit.
And another moment here that I wanted to point out is Bill Paxton kind of chums up to Mark Hamill at this point because he doesn't know he's a space cop or whatever. And lawman. He shows him his wares. He shows him his military grade thing. One of which is straight up just a water bottle. Yeah. just a metal gym water bottle with a screw on top and everything. Is all they didn't even try to disguise that shit.
Very rare in the apocalypse, I assume, because that's how it goes in every other apocalypse movie. So Matt Owens takes Byron to Hell's Kitchen, which I guess is the tent jacuzzi community that where he has all these other bandit friends of his, including Robbie Coltrane.
With his having a random lobster bath where he's also in the bath.
just making some Robbie Coltrane soup.
Yeah,
just
he's cooking
5 people in a jacuzzi and he's got a lobster just
well, and doesn't he say, "Oh, they're always in there" or something like that? This they're always hanging out in this lobster bisque.
Yeah,
Disgusting. And he's like playing around with this lobster that's meant to look like he's supposed to be eating it, but obviously he's not. And he's got a little like floaty toy that he keeps putting on. It's fucking terrible.
While they're in town, the camera quickly lingers on this little kid with a blindfold on, and I'm just thinking, oh, that's kind of weird. But that's establishing the fact that there's a blind kid in town, and when Byron is unsupervised, he goes to the kid and apparently cures him of his cataracts, at which point I'm thinking, okay, so this is like a magical, angelic kind of like a healer character. He's got like some mystical properties to it, but then we find out later he's a robot. So how the fuck did he cure this kid of a blindness?
Technology.
But you need like, cataract surgery for that. It can't just be like you wave your hand on him and like cataracts are gone. So he just in like the span of 2 seconds, he cures this kid of cataracts. How?
It's disappointing to find out that he's just an android because like in this early thing, I think like he's like from like an alternate dimension or something like that.
And especially in that first scene because there's the mention about God and there's a spirituality to the first part, which is a failed theme in this entire movie.
Yeah, Mark Hamill's like a weird religious
zealot.
Yes,
he is it gets a little more, but it's not a consistent.
But he like they quote scripture a lot, and there's like all this flowery poetic dialogue that's flown into stuff. They meet up with a cult at one point, so there is like a low level like religious undertone to everything. Yeah, but there's no payoff to any of this.
No, none of it. None of it. He the fool. He thought the wind would save him. What?
You know what that is? That's them trying to shoehorn a lot of Force bullshit from Star Wars into their sci-fi.
Well, that was that with the cantina scene immediately afterwards. I was like, is this just going to be one big Star Wars ripoff the whole time? It wasn't.
They're trying.
It was.
There are flavors of them trying to like. What worked in Star Wars? Okay, there was like a lot of high-flying adventure stuff. There's a bombastic score. There's like a polite English guy with an English accent. There's Mark Hamill, and there's like some fantasy stuff woven into our sci-fi.
There's also a lot of Blade Runner vibes going on too, and like a series, and actually a straight-up reference to the original book when he talks about dreaming of electric sheep.
Yeah,
like it's so like right in your face. You're like, okay, like. Thanks for that. I got it. Blade Runner came out in the same decade.
Yeah.
The vibe that I was kind of getting from was kind of like, it kind of felt like the Road Warrior, but with planes.
Yeah.
Which on paper, I am 100% behind. That sounds like a great fun time that this movie did not deliver.
If there were more than 2 airplanes in this movie, I would agree with you.
Yeah, if they could have afforded to have more than one plane, but I guess Gary Kurtz's wife took the other planes in the divorce.
They had 2 planes, lots of blimps though. They found out when like a blimp thing was happening, and then they just like.
But you know what?
Around it.
But one of the things that really pissed me off about it was so like I didn't mention this before, but when I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, I've been here because I had actually been to that place in Turkey where all these caves are and stuff, which is also the ballooning capital of the world. Like that's where people go for those shots of like hundreds of balloons going up at once. That's the same area. And that was the only place I ever did.
Maybe want to visit Turkey. It looks really cool.
It's super cool. So actually watching it and thinking back on that trip, I was like, oh, this actually was a good part of watching the movie. But here's the thing: he's talking about, I want to have an airship farm, which doesn't make any sense. He's like talking about it like he's like gonna like grow
Bill Paxton is.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, that's his dream. Whatever. So I'm thinking, okay, when they finally get to the down, they keep saying down the slipstream. You know, he's going to get there, and then we're going to get to this place, and it's like, oh look, there's all the balloons, and there's going to be some like amazing thing where like, we're going to see 100 balloons coming up at sunrise.
It's like 5.
You know, and they're during the credits. It's during the credits. Like, there's not even a thing where it's like, oh, look at them all.
And it's clearly just like
an air blimp show.
They're just modern day balloons that they just happen to be out. Like they're like Turkish cartoon characters that we don't know.
Yeah.
It's like the Felix the Cat balloon.
Yeah. I was like, what? Oh my god, what a missed opportunity.
But you know what this post-apocalyptic world ought to have been was an area populated with like floating islands, like Skies of Arcadia. So now like this is a society that is all populated with air travel.
Yeah.
So there is like a multitude of airships. There are more than 2 planes in this whole fucking universe.
You know what I have to say to that? Cloud City.
Cloud City.
Star Wars got there first, buddy.
Needed a Cloud City.
Well, afterwards I was thinking, if this movie's actually kind of in the vein of like Waterworld. In the sense of like Waterworld is
they were both financial collapses.
Yeah, both financial collapses, but also like Waterworld is like this is the world where people live. It's a dystopia where people live at the mercy of the waves. Yeah. Well, this one is they live at the mercy of the wind.
Yeah.
Could have been very easily called Windworld.
I will say the airplanes in this movie are kind of cool looking because they're not just like single prop Cessna planes. These are like weird flying car prototype looking
Well,
things.
Mark Hamill's plane is cool.
Mm.
His one is cool, but the other ones are just crappy little single prop hobbyist planes with some random spray paint on the side.
Yeah.
Mark Hamill's got a cool plane. The other ones are just ordinary.
But they are functional airplanes.
Yes.
Which
yes.
I'm imagining is where a bulk of this budget went to.
Yeah, and it must have been like a logistical nightmare to like film all of these planes and have all of like these stunt performers just like flying these planes around.
Yeah.
Like I'm surprised like people didn't like die in like a fiery crash.
But there weren't any scenes with a whole bunch of planes though. There was never. It was always just these long shots of like them going down a canyon. There's one really terrible, very low budget shot when he, for some reason, he decides to do a really stupid move down into this gully and then turn around really fast. It looks like there's maybe 2 frames, maybe 3 frames, where they superimpose the shot of a plane over top while it does this quick turn. It looks awful. And then it's all of a sudden back to just a wide shot.
Yeah.
The plane photo visual work is awful.
Well, the technology wasn't there, I would argue.
Yeah. They didn't have like a director of cinematography who knew how to shoot like planes in the sky or all these like flyby sequences. So yeah, Mark Hamill, he kills all of Bill Paxton's his buddy. He kills Robbie Coltrane in like a 10-second
Well,
shootout.
we find out that Robbie Coltrane's suddenly like a heroin dealer or something. Right?
Yeah, he's breaking the law.
They got like they're
whatever.
like drug runners or something like that. Yeah, you know, like they're trying to survive. They're all you know, they're all scum bums. They're all like surviving on like the fringe of society. We barely get to know Robbie Coltrane as a character.
We just know that he likes lobster.
We just know he likes making a big batch of Robbie soup.
Robbie soup.
Yeah, it's for everyone to have. That's why that kid went blind.
Yeah. And take one whole lobster, one Robbie.
Oh, you've
marinate.
You've got pink eye. Put some of this bisque in your eye. Oh no, the infection's getting worse.
I just wanted to look up what this director of cinematography also did.
I looked at
to see if he did anything else that involved like flying or whatever.
Okay.
He did shoot Under Siege, Wagons East,
Not airplane movies.
Chain Reaction, Hoodlum. So not terrible cinematography. Oh, Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. So there we go. Shut my mouth. I apologize, Frank Tidy.
So Frank Tidy, the story on him was that he worked with, if I'm remembering this right from the Wikipedia, he worked with Ridley Scott, right? On commercials.
Oh, okay. Well,
and then that's how he got the gig. Was he done like 100 commercials with Ridley Scott?
Yeah,
I mean,
that makes sense. You know,
start somewhere.
Double check that, but I'm pretty sure I read that on the Wikipedia about this. That was the connection for him. So it's like, who is this guy?
I'll fact check that, and if it's right, I'll keep it in, and if it's wrong, I'll keep it in.
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
So,
the only line I really like in this movie, before we get too far from the cantina, there's one kind of cheeky line which I think was kind of funny, where he shows up randomly with a kitten, and he's talking to this young. And the thing is, he has more chemistry with this waitress character than he has with either of the women that he ends up with later in the film. And he says, he gives her the kitten. He goes, "How about a straight trade?" And I think he's saying, like, I'm going to give you a little pussy. You know what I mean? I was like...
That was what was implied.
Yeah. That's the only line for me that kind of was like...
Oh, Bill Paxton, you rogue.
That's about it for him, though.
Look, you say that, like, he has more chemistry with this server than he does with the other women. He straight up sexually harasses Politsky throughout, like, the entire course of this entire movie.
Well, you want to talk about... Like, people want to talk about how much of a bad role model Han Solo was when it comes to how men should be with women. This is way worse in this movie.
Yeah. He's our hero, apparently.
He's the hero, and at one scene, he handcuffs her to the bed. She's fighting him off the whole time, saying, no, no, no. He fucking handcuffs her on top of her. This is the morning after he slept with that other woman, randomly, which we know nothing about. Then the next day, he's like, oh, I want a little more. So he handcuffs this woman, then he's on top of her, starts kissing her, and she's like, no, stop. Like,
and they wind up together at the end.
And they wind up together at the end. It's way worse than anything Han Solo did. I'll go on the record as saying that.
Yeah.
No
argument here.
I think that's totally fair. Yeah, I mean, like, this was early Bill Paxton, so he was still very much in, like, his scumbum mode. You know, this is a few years after, like, The Terminator.
Yeah.
A year after Aliens. No, a few years after Aliens. So, yeah, no, he wasn't... I mean, like, Bill Paxton, you know, one of the nicest guys in Hollywood, kind of always sort of known for playing pieces of shit. Yeah. So, but it's weird in this one because he's supposed to be like the protagonist, He's supposed
to be the charming scoundrel.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. He's supposed to be the Han Solo of this, but he goes a little too far on the roguish part and a little less on the charm.
Exactly. So he is taking Byron to somewhere. I don't know where exactly, but somewhere to collect this bounty.
Yeah, the bounty office.
Sure.
One presumes.
Yeah, somewhere away from Mark Hamill and Belitsky or whatever the fuck her name is. And they have to make a pit stop somewhere in this, maybe the wind gets too strong, so they have to land in this one valley that is populated with a bunch of wind cultists, led by Sir Ben Kingsley.
Yes.
It gets worse.
Yeah.
Who spends his entire role trapped under a rock.
Yeah. Byron tries to heal him of his wounds, but he won't have any of it, and they start saying this just fucking gibberish shit I had to write down cruel irony, to have forgiveness with nothing to forgive, to have a belief that cannot be believed.
All that will be left of me is bits of gold in the sand. You have a soul. Do not abandon it in death.
Pitiful thing, to have a belief that cannot be lived. To have forgiveness, and there's nothing to forgive. To have love only for those who love us.
Let the Slipstream take him if he's an abomination. We must test him.
I was lost.
What the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah.
This movie has two, for the time, recent Oscar winners in its cast. We'll get to the other one in a minute, but in just nothing, little cameo roles that basically give them nothing to do, and one imagines why they were both high profile actors at this time. What are you doing taking these tiny little nothing parts in this movie? I guess it must be the Star Wars connection, really. Is why else would you be here?
I suppose it is. I mean, my thoughts on Ben Kingsley is people tell me he's an acclaimed actor, and yet most of the things I've seen him in are kind of shitty.
Ben Kingsley, another name for the job.
Yeah.
he's been in a lot of garbage. Yeah.
So Byron tries to heal him by pulling out a piece of his hair and suturing his wounds with it, but that doesn't work. So the wind cultists, by the way, this is only maybe 5 years after the collapse of society, and already we have people worshipping the wind gods.
I think it would take less time than that, frankly.
Fine. But anyways, they say, okay, well, the wind gods will decide your fate, so they attach him to a kite. If he blows away, the gods have decided death. But they just leave him up there for what I assume will be a couple of days.
I read in the trivia that there was a longer cut of this movie that was significantly more violent.
Yes.
And they cut out almost all of the violence, but according to Steven Lisberger, a lot of that connective tissue was also the stuff that, made sense.
Yeah.
So, we cut from Byron trying to heal Ben Kingsley immediately to Bill Paxton is tied up in a room.
Yeah.
And there's never any, it's all did someone knock him out? What the fuck happened? He's just, tied up and Byron's on a kite now.
Yeah.
No scene explaining how that happened.
So Mark Hamill does track down Bill Paxton, and he says, okay, well, we'll cut a deal. You help him get him down, and we'll give you the antidote. So, Bill Paxton puts on a parachute and updrafts him up to the kite. Belitsky goes with him, and there's a tussle, and the kite crashes.
In a scene that would be cool if it wasn't shot like absolute garbage.
It's one of the worst.
It's indecipherable. You can barely tell what's going on.
You can't tell what's going on.
Yeah.
Whether you're watching it on Tubi or YouTube,
Yeah.
nobody knows
it's so dark, and then there's about 5 minutes after that where they're just wandering through the wind.
It's visual sludge.
And you also can't
in the dark, and
you also can't hear what's going on because the wind's just going the entire time. So yeah, it's practically unwatchable.
So they do crash land. There's some fucking banter between Belitsky and Bill Paxton where they're talking about balloons. Actually, I wrote down what they said. He's drawing these balloons in the sands, and he says, "This is a little balloon baby," and little ma and pa organization. She says, "Is it a pink one or a blue one?" To which he replies, "Why not?"
What's that?
Little baby balloon. A mom and pop kind of operation.
Is it a pink one or a blue one?
Why not?
And again, this is the stupid idea that he's gonna raise them like they're cattle, raising balloons.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, they'll rise up into the atmosphere with the helium and whatnot.
But he's talking. Oh god.
There's germs of ideas of an old screenplay here about what if air had sentience?
Yeah.
What if it had midichlorians flying around?
Yeah, and from the moment where they attempt to rescue Byron from the kite to almost the end, there's a good 40 minutes where Mark Hamill's just out of the movie. He disappears in the windstorm. Belitsky goes to look for them, and they don't show up again until the very end. Much like Iron Mask, Mark Hamill is top billed in this. He plays an antagonist, and he's barely in the film.
Right. So the next morning, Bill Paxton, Byron, and a new friend from out of fucking nowhere joins them on this.
One of the cultists, Ariel.
Yeah. Where the fuck did she come from?
She's from this one community, but she was hanging out with the wind cultists for reasons. I guess she went on like a fact-finding mission, even though we find out that she's part of like an underground society of like rich, affluent people who
are very xenophobic.
Yeah, and who don't let people in or out. So how did she get out in the first place?
And why are they, well, I mean, this part like is eventually explained, but yes, like they are like this wealthy group of people who are maintaining a lot of the architecture and art from the old world in like this underground museum. Yeah, and I guess she was sent out just, because she's an affluent member, so she could just come and go as she pleases. Yeah, I mean, as soon as they get to the big oak doors under the ground, I'm just like, what kind of fuck? All right, what the fuck is behind
what fuckery?
it?
What
What bullshit is behind here?
What eyes wide shut nonsense is happening here?
They go into they're allowed into the museum, and that's when Byron starts like laying down the exposition about his history, where he's from, I assume, because at least in the quality I watched, the acoustics were dog shit, and I could not tell what he was saying.
By such a fiery sense of divine judgment, but now religious is that it shaped man's confidence in very existence. It has excited both his doubt and his conscience.
It almost feels like it's not important.
It's not important.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, I'm catching snippets of it, and I'm all like, am I supposed to be hearing what he's saying? Because, it sounds like he's going into it and he's talking for a while. But yeah, I couldn't make up anything. He's like halfway down a hallway. Bill Paxton is a little ahead of him, and Bill Paxton's walking around. He goes up to a statue at one point and says, "Nice tits."
Yeah.
Pretends to represent God, to identify,
I heard that more than I heard anything that Byron was saying.
Yeah.
Thank God for the Wikipedia article, because we find out he was a robot butler. He killed his master on his master's orders. That's what he's wanted for. How Mark Hamill found out about that, I have no fucking idea.
Does Mark Hamill say that he broke his master's neck or something?
I think so.
Because I just it's funny when we learn this context. It's all like, I was serving my master, I loved my master, I loved working for him, he was dying, he asked me to kill him, it's all like, I respect your wishes, master. And then he just goes, it's just like, probably could have done that another way, Byron.
Jolly good, sir.
Maybe we should write down your wishes, sir, so that no one has any questions about my intentions.
Yes. Give me a hall pass.
A video recording of this, perhaps, sir.
Put it in your will that it's totally fine for my robot butler, who, by the way, his name is... Yeah.
He never seems to offer it to people. So yeah, Bill Paxton and Byron are just not entirely welcomed, but they just hang out in this underground society where it's a lot like fucking Rodney Dangerfield and Caddyshack. They're he's like, hey, check this place out. This place is fantastic, And they cut up a rug on the dance floor and everything.
A whole long dance sequence.
Holy shit!
Very strange.
What the fuck's going on?
Byron is just doing something because he says he's downloaded Fred Astaire dance moves.
Yes, my master had all the Fred Astaire movies. I've compiled all of them.
He's twirling a cane around and everything. Yeah. And then Ariel goes to talk with the heads of the underground society, led by F. Murray Abraham in another cameo role that you think is going to go somewhere, but really he doesn't really do anything. He doesn't advance the plot or anything. He's just the guy in the underground layer here.
Society. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, he's admonishing Ariel for going to the outside world and bringing back these strangers. And she's, we could use his technological capabilities. He fixed the air conditioner, which apparently was a fucking problem the whole time. But
you literally couldn't breathe. You had to put on gas masks to walk around.
Two guys had gas masks on. When we first introduced to these rich fucks, none of them are wearing gas masks. It's only when we see people wearing gas masks that they take them off and say, oh, hey, the air's fixed. Which was never a problem before. What does he say to her that was really telling to how the quality of the dialogue in here?
You're very convincing. Don't you see? You've misled them about us. So how can we know you're not misleading us about them?
Dun dun dun! Who wrote this garbage?
It's like the Sphinx from Mystery Man is all to go forward, you must go back. So Bill Paxton hooks up with a random character
Totally
I don't
random.
even think gets a name.
Mm-hmm.
And then Byron spends the night with Ariel, and they have a little tender little
Cuddle.
romance
It's a cuddle.
going on here. There's a weird thing because there's
They have
this...
a weird foreplay thing where he roars like a lion
He
at
roars
her.
like a lion, which made me laugh so hard because she because there's a bunch of like taxidermied animals,
Yeah.
and Ariel she goes like rawr, like trying to like the thing, and then he just roars like the MGM lion, and it's funny because it's just Bob Peck opening his mouth and a sound effect comes out. It's all like, what can you do, Byron? Like, what's the full list of things that you can do?
Everything.
Please?
He's basically a Jesus character.
Basically
He
God,
can heal the sick.
Yeah.
He's well, Jesus wasn't indestructible, but you know, he's practically he's a godlike character in this movie.
In a way, Jesus was indestructible. It took him a little longer.
Right.
It took him a couple days.
A couple of days, yeah. Anyways, he spends the night with Ariel, and now like he's slept for the first time in his life, and he's had dreams for the first time in his life, and he has a real spring in his step from here on out. He has like a new joie de vivre.
That's a thing that was referenced earlier. They're hanging around a campfire, him and Bill Paxton, and Bill Paxton was telling him about his dream of owning a balloon farm upstate, and that's when Byron says like robots don't dream. So yeah, but Byron dreams for the first time. As he found himself a girlfriend. Yeah.
And you know, Bill Paxton's had a change of heart too. So you know, you get yourself laid, and you wake up the next day with a clear head.
They're becoming buddies.
They're
becoming close.
Like, you know what? Like I'm gonna let you go. You can do whatever the hell you want, Byron. Which he celebrates by ejaculating sparks.
When you say I'm free to go, do you mean I'm free to stay? I mean I'm not taking you in.
I mean, he's working on like the fucking air conditioning.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that.
It's like, there was a moment there
He just shoots
I
sparks
wasn't
all
paying
over.
attention. I was like, what are you referencing here?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
No, it happens. You don't forget a thing like that.
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah.
Anyways, Mark Hamill shows up again. Even though the door is fucking like locked by a key code, he manages to waltz his way into the fucking underground
And kill
society.
like 20 people.
Yeah.
He punches F. Murray Abraham, which means the Broadway Amadeus punched out the movie Salieri, which probably felt a little cathartic for Mark Hamill in that moment. He's all like, motherfucker, fucking winning my Oscar.
Let's see what the fuck happens. I got a lot of fucking notes for this stupid thing. Ariel dies.
Yeah,
during
there's a firefight. He shoots Byron. It has no effect on Byron. Then Ariel, of course, steps in front of him, and she gets killed.
Takes a bullet for an indestructible man.
Yeah. What's her name? Belitsky is handcuffed to a bed at this point because
shoots him with the antidote.
Gives him the all-important antidote that he desperately needed because
everything's been leading up to this.
He was holding on by a thread. He didn't totally just have a night of wild intercourse. No, he was clinging to life.
Yeah. You could easily cut this whole he's poisoned
subplot.
From
Doesn't
this.
make any fucking sense.
You could easily cut that if you're short on time. Yeah, and then Byron goes on a fucking rampage after Mark Hamill and chases him down. I gotta wonder, how did Mark Hamill apprehend this guy in the first place? If like you can't shoot this guy dead, you know, nothing seems to incapacitate this guy.
He shot him through the arm with a harpoon. And
I
guess Byron gave up, or I mean, that's a good point that you raised, Jameson. But if Byron is sort of it's because he's gone on a journey. And he has learned that his life has like meaning, and he's like free now and stuff like that. So he has something to fight for.
He has something to live for now. Yeah.
Before he didn't really give a shit, and now he's all like, "You killed my girlfriend. I'm a free person. I'm gonna fight for my right to be free."
Right.
Hamill. Yeah.
So Mark Hamill tries to run him down with an airplane, which, as we've seen before, won't work because when it comes down to man versus airplane in this movie,
paper mache, yes.
Man wins. And
they're basically Wright brothers planes at this point. With like the
it's a ridiculous sequence of events. First of all, the move where he hits him and he just goes conveniently boop over the top and into the back seat
with a great shoop sound effect from when he gets sucked into the engine.
And then he still like takes off, even though like now I guess he's thinking, "Ha, I've got you now." But it's like also kind of makes sense, I guess, because at no point when he's ever been in these planes ever, even though he's an android supposedly super strong, because he moves that rock thing, so he does have super strength. He never tries to escape at any point. Like when Mark Hamill had him under had him like chained up or whatever. Bill Paxton then he never tries to escape, even though he could. So I guess he's thinking, well, he's in my plane. I can just fly on. Forget about that other chick I was working with. Fuck her. I'm gonna just fly down to the bounty office right now.
Bill Paxton has him in handcuffs at one point, and he just like quietly takes them off, and he's all like, "Oh, hey, cool."
He knows how to lockpick.
Yeah. Like you get the impression that Byron could escape at any point, but he just chooses not to because he's not even on. Byron doesn't even really have a mission.
No,
he's just kind of wandering around, right?
Exactly. Well, and it's like So where was he even going when Mark Hamill's chasing after him in the beginning? He doesn't even have like a destination.
He says that after he has the dream specifically about a land at the end of the Slipstream where other androids are.
Yes.
And that's like a weird little bit of like sequel bait.
Yeah.
That's like
an iRobot kind of thing.
Maybe that exists.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know. We see him at the very end walking off to see if that actually happened or not. It would make sense maybe if that was where he was going from the very start.
Exactly, yes.
You know, but like one presumes he's just trying to escape Mark Hamill at the beginning because
but he also says
he's wanted for murder.
He says, "Are you going to try to escape?" And he goes, "No, I actually think I deserve to be punished." So why was he running away?
Well, my question is, like, if he's under the command of his master to kill him, but he also mentions that, like, he basically handled the upkeep of the mansion. With the master dead, wouldn't he still adhere to his original programming and just hang around the mansion? How the fuck did Mark Hamill figure out that this guy killed a dude?
Who put the bounty up for him?
Yeah.
Who was like, we need to hunt down that, like, did he have like a sister who was like, you killed my brother? And like a rich sister who like put up the bounty and like hired Mark Hamill? Like,
all great questions. I mean, like, Mark Hamill isn't even like really technically the law. He's kind of like taking the law into his own hands.
Yeah.
And he's just like wearing the badge as sort of like a trapping of
and
like a society that doesn't exist anymore. So who knows what anyone's motivation in this is? The only motivation that makes any sort of sense is Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton wants money.
So there's a tussle between Byron and Mark Hamill in the plane, which ends in one of my most favorite comedy cuts of all time.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Where like he's about to kill Mark Hamill. He repeats that quote about I have slipped the surly bonds of earth. Whatever, that fucking same thing that Byron says. That's like his off switch. You know, so that he's like, okay, I've snapped out of my kill mode, and now I gotta save this man. So he grabs the two wires of the cut-off cockpit stick, like it's the reins of a horse, and he's trying to pull back, and Mark Hamill goes, "You're doing it! You're saving us! You're gonna save us!" And it immediately cuts to a great comedy shot of like a model crashing into the side of a
I believe he says, like, we're gonna live!
We're gonna live!
Boom! Yeah. It's pretty great. I don't think that was the effect that they were going for,
No.
but I appreciated it.
yeah.
It was like someone took like an unrelated footage of a plane crashing into a mountain and just
stock footage. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But Byron survives and he meets up with Bill Paxton.
With some amazing dirty makeup on. Like, look, he was just in a fireball. And you're like, wait, is that supposed to be we're seeing his like metallic skin under his human skin, or is he just dirty?
No, he's got impenetrable human skin.
Yeah,
Like,
his human skin, it's not Terminator situation.
It's like if he was holding a big comedy bomb with like a wick at the end of it.
Just all covered in soot and his hair is all blown
His
back.
nose is on the back of his head. He has to like turn it around.
Yeah. He says to Bill Paxton, "I'm too dangerous to be human." To which Bill Paxton replies, "No, you're not. You're..." And then the fucking thing cuts out and I couldn't hear the rest of it.
He's trying to say something like humans are the dangerous ones.
Yeah, that
like,
kind of shit, right?
Yeah, we can just fill in the blanks like a Mad Libs at this point.
And that's basically the movie.
Yeah, well, and then of course it's supposed to be this big payoff at the end with the fucking little house on the prairie balloon farm. And but then they decided to just shoehorn that into the fucking credits.
Yes.
That's the movie.
And there's like a moment where it looks like Matt and Bolitsky are going to kiss, but they never quite. And it's all like, good, she shouldn't. He's bad. He's a bad man. Don't you hook up with him.
No.
I know like his buddy just killed like your only friend. She also doesn't seem like terribly like shook up over Mark Hamill's death, even though like she was very loyal to him over the course of the entire movie.
Weirdly so, considering that like they had a really strange partnership relationship. Yeah. Doing the job, they were great together, but like interpersonal, they didn't seem to like each other that much.
One of the only things that they actually do foreshadow and put in and then come back to is the fact that she does want out.
Yeah.
They mention that where she's like, I want to do something else. And he's like, stop talking about that. Like, we need to be the law. He's like, what does that even mean anymore? It's one of the only things that actually carries through the film properly.
Yeah.
So at the end, you're just like, yeah, she didn't want to do that anymore. But it doesn't make sense that she flies off into the sunset to the fucking balloon farm.
So like, well, one man's as good as the next, I guess.
Yeah, I'll just get into the next dude who has his own plane.
I was a woman of the law, but I guess being an arms dealer associate's just as good now that Mark Hamill's dead.
Or who knows what Bill Paxton's even going to do at this point. Well, he's going to raise
He's going to go to Balloon World.
He's going to raise his balloons. How nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Fucking balloon.
Is there anything else that we didn't talk about? Can we talk about how epic the music is in this movie?
That opening track is
how,
insane.
Unnaturally epic it is.
Boom,
So,
boom, boom, boom.
It's once again a case of you can see the money that Gary Kurtz was just hemorrhaging into this, because the music's done by Elmer Bernstein, one of the great composers of cinema. He did The Magnificent Seven, To Kill a Mockingbird, Ghostbusters.
Mhm.
Like a big guy. And the score was recorded by the London Symphony Orchestra, the same group of people that did all
the
three
Star-
Star Wars
yeah.
movies. So it's like it has like this big, grandiose, epic, sweeping fantasy score that goes along with it, and it's for this movie.
It's like putting a Corvette engine in a Chevette.
I'll take your word for that.
Okay, fine.
Those seem like impressive cars.
Well, one is. The other one is one I had in high school. The other thing, one thing I wanted to mention that's also music related, and this is going to be a question to you guys because you guys watched it on Tubi. There are some, actual songs, like rock songs, in the movie that are played over some of the flying sequences. The version that I watched, that was practically muted and cut out, which I think was done for copyright.
Yeah, like YouTube cut it out.
Yeah, or the uploader did that, because I could also hear because we've watched other movies on YouTube.
You could hear people
And
quietly talking in Chechen.
Well, I could hear the rock songs, and with this movie being in the public domain, I don't think that would have been really a problem anymore. So I just want to know, could you guys hear the rock songs in this movie?
Yeah, but they weren't songs that I recognize. I'm looking at
Okay.
the soundtrack now. It looks like there's a song by the Yardbirds.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Shape of Things. There's another one by a group called Then Jericho, which isn't a band I've ever heard.
No.
So there's no Mercenary Man.
Okay.
Basically, is what I'm saying.
Few things are as good as Mercenary Man.
Things are, yeah, exactly. Speaking of the music, though, this is interesting. So when Bill Paxton is flying his plane and he's talking to Byron, he's just been poisoned. He's all like, "Do I look okay?" He pulls out a book of CDs, a book of compact discs.
Yes.
And he uses one as a mirror, but then he puts it in and he starts playing music in it. This movie's from 1989. When was CD technology a thing? When did that start? Is this movie weirdly prescient?
It might have been an attempt to look futuristic. They were like, "Oh, let's get one of these CD things and jam her in there."
Yeah.
I mean, if the movie can't,
It's just really interesting how
conceivable.
they kind of got on top of a technology that in theory was only a couple of years away, and they were just this will make us look neat and futuristic, but it's just again driving around in your Ford Focus with your book of CDs.
Yeah. No, that's conceivable because they probably went to some technology expo and got a preview of what's going to be the next hot thing, and hey, we're making this sci-fi movie. Can you loan us a couple of these? Because they do that sometimes for sci-fi movies.
Whenever you see it, it's always something dumb. They always put microchips in something or
Yes.
whatever, or it's
a flat TV screen embedded in the wall that's only a picture frame size and not a massive floor to ceiling thing.
Or it's all still inexplicably 8 tracks.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
It's the future where there's neon lights on every wall, but everyone has fax machines still.
Yeah.
I love retro the future.
I love retrofuturism.
Yeah.
Jordan, was there anything that we haven't touched on yet?
Well, did you guys catch the one reference to a solar panel where I think they were trying to explain some of the nonsense about the fuel technology? There's a one totally off the cuff record. Hey, watch out for the solar panel, because apparently he has a solar panel on top of his plane.
Oh,
In theory, to maybe run this little CD player that he's got.
Yeah.
So that's why he's got his sweet tunes. It's because he's got this random solar panel on the top.
I remember that. I remember seeing the solar panel, and then I quickly forgot it because the next scene is Byron strapped to the wing of the plane.
Yeah.
So
blocking the sun
So he
panel.
wouldn't be able to listen to music when he's got the android strapped down to the solar panel because it's blocking.
But then Byron just opens his mouth and music just comes out of him like a controller.
Yeah.
I have 30 songs downloaded, sir. He's like an iPod. He's an iPod shuffle.
Yeah.
30 songs. I didn't even know 30 songs existed here in the post-apocalypse.
Oh gosh.
Oh, Christ.
All right. Well, we've come to the part of the podcast where we ask Jordan Jameson, does this movie have a certain something, or is it just a whole lot of nothing?
You first.
It's a hot pile of garbage.
That's a nothing then. That's
It's
one
a
in the nothing
It's a
pile.
nothing.
Yeah. Why? Why do you say? Haven't seen the whole picture yourself.
Well, I mean, it's visual sludge. It doesn't. The story. It's so disappointing when you see something where people that should have known better. If it was a young filmmaker or someone with less experience, it's certain artistic vision and choices are really forgivable. Like, interesting that you were going to try to do that or go in that direction. These people should have known better.
It's from the director of Tron, which, say what you will, that's one of the most like visually distinct movies made in the 80s. So
and it has a really good look, and it has a concept, and we were all kind of in agreement that the film doesn't really stand up. But I stand by it. That it was a strong vision, and these people should have known better, because the vision for this film was a fucking totally a hot pile of garbage.
I think whatever idea they are going for of like the fringes of society getting around in the post-apocalypse by airplane, whatever good idea you can mine from that is just weighed down by so much fantasy and robotic futuristic nonsense, baffling dialogue, and like decisions that are made like by characters or through the plot that have no real payoff. It's a very frustrating movie. This movie's got nothing.
As I said earlier, I think I liked it like a little bit more than you guys did, but also I there's no reason to watch this. I wouldn't recommend anyone check this out really for any reason other than just like the most broadest curiosity, really. And now if you've listened to us talk about all of it, you kind of don't.
Well, you could have watched the movie in the time that we've been talking about.
You could. I mean, that's very often what happens with.
In which case, suckers.
You could put, if you're not watching this on the YouTube version, you could put this movie on Tubi. Turn the volume off and just watch clips of it as we're going.
Decent movie to watch, like in the background at a bar with the sound off. Actually, if you can find a higher quality visual quality of this movie, watch that and let us know.
Well, I'd like to see the proper cinema version of it, because in 4:3, I think anything in terms of these flying shots looks so bad in a little box. I really want to see the wide sweeping shots of it. It pissed me off so much, actually.
It's good for IMAX. Re-release this in the IMAX version.
Sure, why not?
Well, and I was reading a thing about, they were saying, because apparently in the year 2000 or something, they came out with a new version of it, and people were saying, because there are fans of this movie, people do like it, and they said, they're going to do a director's cut, and then Gary Kurtz was like, sorry guys,
we never actually. I read that they never even shot the other
scenes.
Yeah,
they were like, sorry, with all that other stuff that we all said, you know what, it was in the script and it made the movie better and it tied everything together. We actually didn't shoot any of that stuff.
Check the annotations on the Wikipedia page instead.
Speaking on that, do you think there's a version of this movie that could work? What is the skeleton of this movie that you would keep and make a more cohesive movie around it?
If it's a dystopia movie, a movie that's about people living in the aftermath of massive environmental upheaval, and it's people are into dystopia stuff, you could make a dystopia movie. And you could make it a thing of like, there's this never-ending stream of cyclones that come through every night and destroy everything, so we as a society can't build back up. You could make a movie about that. But I mean, in terms of, like, all the dialogue has to be scrapped. Yeah. And you have to pare down some of the... There's like 10 themes. None of them are fleshed out, built up, set up properly, or followed through on. You got to distill what the story is about between these characters. And also, we need to know more about the characters, about where they've come from and where, what their ambitions are, what their wants and dreams are. You could make this movie, but it would be totally a new movie.
I would keep the airfaring society elements there, because I think that that's an interesting concept that hasn't really been done before.
You could do that today with like a Hollywood budget today.
Sure.
Show us like an art, like you say, like a Skies of Arcadia RPG type world.
Start with that as like the barest of foundations, and then grow from there. And if one thing gets like a little too left of center, reel it back. Make this airfaring society more grounded.
That's a studio note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does he mean by this bullshit?
On the subject of reeling things back, if you could also maybe introduce a main character who's a little less rapey, that might also work in the movie's favor. But anyway, Jordan Lloyd Watkins, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thanks for being
talking
here.
about this strange blip on Mark Hamill's career. What have you absorbed recently in pop culture? Do you have any recommendations that you think people should check out?
Something good.
To be honest, the only things I'm really enjoying right now has been just so much like true crime docuseries. That's the thing I think Netflix does the best in terms of its original content. If it's from the 80s or 70s, 80s, or early 90s, and it's got a whole bunch of really well taken like footage from like local TV news, and it's been cut into like a slick new like 4K Netflix docuseries about crimes that happened in the past.
If the documentaries are from that era, or if the crimes are from
if the crimes are from that era, and all the footage of like people are like, well, dangle, that was just over here. Now just like that sort of stuff. That's what I want.
Real slice of life from what
That's
people were actually like back then. Yeah.
I was hanging out on the corner and they did. Oh, they did on the corner.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of those that have been really good. The names of all of them will escape me because they all blend together as one big thing about like, look at all the fucking serial killers from the 80s. That's honestly in terms of TV, that's what I've been watching that I'm enjoying right now.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, there you go.
That's a terrible plug because it's not for anything specific.
Check out the True Crime tab on Netflix.
You know,
what we recommend.
The one that Ron Howard just produced, the one about the Times Square killer. Fuck, that is a juicy one. Okay. That's a good one.
All right.
So check that one out.
Get into some juicy true crime. Well, that was Slipstream, directed by Steven Lisberger. If you enjoyed this episode of Nothing Movies, please listen to our back catalog of our previous podcast, The Fuck Is This? It's basically exactly like this, but we don't really talk about actors' filmographies. We just pick a movie and we just kind of like ramble on as we did today. Check us out on all of the social medias. You can search Nothing Movies on Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter. You can find us on there. If you're listening to us on Spotify and you want kind of like a more visual element to the episode, we're also on YouTube, where Jameson includes all of these clips and pictures from the movie, so you can have a little more frame of reference as to what's going on.
Even though this movie's a visual nightmare, good luck
Good
luck watching that.
They'll be a little blurry there. Next episode, we are watching Mark Hamill's only directorial effort, Comic Book: The Movie.
A movie I bought on DVD.
A movie that Jameson has been wanting to do an episode on for quite a while, so we are scratching that one off. So we will be talking about that, and we will be talking about Mark Hamill as a voiceover actor on that one there, which is, as I mentioned earlier, is a career that is significantly more prolific than his film work. So we'll be getting into that, and we'll be talking about there. So thanks for listening. I'm Kaz.
I'm Jameson. That was our first go-ahead of like a Mark Hamill trilogy. And may the force be with you.
But I was going to go down to the Toshi station to pick up some power converters.
You can still do that.
I still did that. All right, fine, whatever.